When the ones who once needed you now turn away in silence, is there any pain sharper than standing before your child's heart, knocking, and no one opens the door? You could give them everything, your time, your energy, your sacrifice, and still be ignored as if you never existed. And here's the cruel paradox. The more you demand respect, the further you're pushed away from the place you once held in their life. Picture this. You're standing outside your child's door. You know they're inside. You know they can hear you, but still they choose silence. No reply, no eye contact, not even a word. That feeling? It isn't just being ignored, it's a quiet devastation, a slow erasure from the center of the life you helped build. And then you wonder, what did I do wrong? But this pain isn't just about parental grief, it's an emotional trap many elders fall into. The harder you try to reclaim their attention, the more you're seen as a burden. The louder you speak, the more you're dismissed as noise. Anger makes you look weak. Sadness only deepens the wound. Today, we won't repeat old patterns. No begging, no blaming, no regrets. Today, we rise as the Stoics did, calm, precise, and detached from the need for validation. In this video, you'll learn how to reclaim your dignity not by demanding it, but by becoming silent in power. How to re-establish your boundaries not with guilt, but with quiet confidence. And you'll discover that sometimes the strongest response is no response at all. By the end, I'll share one lesson, just one that can change everything. How you live, how you love, and how you walk through life without needing to be seen. I'm Gabriel. If you've ever felt ignored by the very people who should have valued you most, this message is for you. Stay with me until the end. Because if even your loudest voice doesn't make them listen, maybe it's time to master the art of being silent. Part 1. Respect isn't demanded, it's reclaimed by presence. Respect was never something you could beg for, not as a parent, not as a human being. And if you now feel the need to demand if your words fall flat, if your presence is barely register, it's because somewhere along the road, you unknowingly gave it away. That erosion didn't happen overnight. It wasn't one fight. It wasn't one moment of silence. It was hundreds of subtle choice times you stayed quiet when you should have stood tall, times you gave in when you should have set the line. And each time, your voice softened until it was no longer heard as strength but as background noise. They didn't stop respecting you because they're cruel. They stopped because you became too available, too forgiving, too silent in the face of little things that slowly became habits. And what becomes habit gets ignored. Maybe they watched you sacrifice year after year, thinking love meant no boundaries. Maybe you thought that being a good parent meant swallowing every disrespect with patience until one day your absence didn't feel like a loss. It felt convenient. Think of it like this. Picture a wooden chair that stood faithfully in the corner of the house. At first, everyone saw its value. It was useful, familiar, even comforting. But over the years, it faded into the background. No one acknowledged it. No one thanked it. It was just there. Until one day, the chair broke, and no one missed it. That's how some of them have come to see you, not because you aren't worthy, but because your constant presence trained them to treat your value as obvious, guaranteed. But let's be clear, you are not a chair. You are not furniture that waits patiently to be noticed. You are a living soul with wisdom, with dignity, and with depth. And starting today, you don't need to demand respect. You need to radiate it. Because the truth is, people feel what you project. And when you stand tall, again, not with rage, but with quiet boundaries and calm dignity, the entire room shifts. You don't have to yell. You don't even have to explain. You simply become someone who no longer accepts being overlooked. And that's the beginning of being seen again. Part 2. Stop explaining yourself. Start embodying value. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." The same applies to respect. Don't argue for it. Don't explain why you deserve it. Live in a way that leaves no room for doubt. If your children, your family, or those you've given everything to no longer see your value, try to convince them. Become it again, quietly, firmly, unapologetically. This doesn't mean turning your heart to stone. It means stepping back with clarity, not bitterness. It means adopting what I call strategic presence, the art of being less accessible, more intentional. When you speak, speak with weight. Say less, but mean every word. Let your silence be a statement, not a wound. And when they come to you not to dump their frustrations or take more of your energy, but to share, to contribute, to respect your space, welcome that. But only then. You see, true respect doesn't come from being louder. It comes when people begin to realize, this person doesn't need me, but I need them. Respect happens in absence, in mystery, in strength that isn't flaunted but felt. So the next time you feel the urge to explain, to ask, "Why are you treating me this way?" Remember, if someone ignores you, it's not an accident. At some point, they decided you'd still be there no matter how they treated you. Now comes your choice. You can chase their attention and confirm that belief, or you can step away and quietly disprove it. You don't need to disappear. You need to evolve. The broken chair in the corner, forgotten and taken for granted, that chair can become anything. It can be firewood for a new flame. It can be carved into something elegant, useful, respected again, but only when it stops waiting to be sat on. You're not stuck in the role they've assigned you. You're not defined by their disregard. But they will never see your transformation until you stop needing them to notice it. So stop explaining, stop chasing, and start creating a version of yourself that's so grounded, so clear, so whole that even if they never change, you still rise. Part 3. Let go of emotional dependence. Let's be brutally honest. The real problem isn't just that they ignore you. It's that deep down, you're still waiting for them to come back and treat you like you matter. You haven't truly let go. You're still hoping they'll wake up one day, realize what you've done for them, and finally give you the love and respect you've earned. But that hope, that quiet, lingering expectation, is the real thing breaking you. Not their silence, not their absence. The wound isn't just what they've done, it's what you keep waiting for. And that's what we need to dismantle right now. Because what's truly draining you isn't just their indifference, it's the emotional leash you've tied to their behavior. Their mood becomes your mood. Their silence becomes your suffering. Their approval becomes your identity. And that, my friend, is the very definition of emotional slavery. Every time you stare at a screen, waiting for a message that never comes, every time you feel your heart rise when they text, then plummet when they don't, you're handing them the keys to your emotional world. And here's the harsh truth. They didn't ask for that power. You gave it to them. The Stoics warned us about this. Epictetus said, "Don't suffer over what isn't up to you." And your children's behavior, their kindness, their presence, their respect, that's not up to you anymore. They're adults now. They're free, just like you. So the question becomes, if you can't control how they treat you, why are you still letting it control you? You may not realize it, but your emotional dependency is teaching them something dangerous. It teaches them that your well-being depends on them, that they can pull your strings with silence, that their attention is your oxygen. And what happens to people who feel they're someone else's lifeline? They pull away, they resist, they disappear. Because no one wants to feel like someone else's happiness is a burden. You think you're loving them deeply, but what they feel is pressure. You think you're giving them space, but what they see is silent expectation. And slowly, without realizing it, you become a figure they visit out of duty, not desire. But here's the shift. Letting go doesn't mean letting them go. It means letting go of the belief that you need their attention to be whole. It means waking up in the morning and choosing your own peace, regardless of whether they text or not. It means you live fully even when they forget your birthday. It means you laugh, grow, and thrive even if they don't show up. That is emotional freedom. And when you step into that kind of self-possession, something powerful happens. They notice. Not because you said something, but because they feel it. They feel the shift. You're no longer orbiting them. You've become your own center of gravity. Your presence doesn't beget radiates. And that is when people are drawn in. That's when respect returns. Not because you asked for it, but because you stopped needing it. Visualize this with me. You're out at sea, no boat, just you and the waves. For years, you've been clinging to this one rafter relationship with them. You believed that without it, you'd sink. But now, you let go. You tread water. You find your rhythm. You realize you can swim. You're not drowning. You're free. And then, something strange happens. That raft, the one you once needed, starts drifting back. Not because you reached for it, but because strength, real inner strength, always draws what's meant for you. So if you're still waiting for the apology, the phone call, the recognition, stop. Stop outsourcing your peace. Stop renting your joy to someone else's mood. What you need now isn't their validation. It's your own liberation. And that liberation isn't loud. It doesn't come with confrontation. It comes in silence, in stillness, in your refusal to be shaken by things outside your control. It's a quiet revolution of self-respect. So don't beg, don't explain, don't perform. Instead, reclaim your power. Because the next move isn't to try harder. It's to embody something few ever master. A quiet, unshakable form of dignity. And that is what we're going to explore next. Part 4. Silence and Strategy. The Stoic Response to Indifference. If you've made it this far, it means one thing. You've already begun to reclaim something most people never do: the power to stop begging for what should be freely given. You understand now that respect isn't something you can demand. It must be drawn to you like gravity, like still water pulling even the wind to pause. And here's where we shift. This is the part of the journey most people never reach. The point where we stop talking and start commanding presence, say no with noise, but with stillness. We live in a culture of overreaction, where every silence is seen as a threat and every emotion is broadcast in real time. We've forgotten how to sit with discomfort, how to hold our ground, how to make silence not just a pause, but a statement. But the Stoics knew. They always knew. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who could have commanded the attention of millions, chose instead to master his reactions. Why? Because the one who reacts least controls the most. So the next time they ignore your message, say nothing. The next time they walk past you as if you're invisible, look ahead, not with bitterness, but with unshakable calm. You're not punishing them. You're recentering yourself. You're choosing to no longer play a game that was rigged against you from the start. Because here's the truth, no one tells you every time you react out of need, every time you try to chase, fix, or explain, you shrink in their eyes. But when you hold your silence not coldly, but powerfully, you become a mystery. And humans? We're drawn to mystery far more than need. Strategic silence is not withdrawal, it's positioning. It's the art of making your absence speak louder than your presence ever did when it was taken for granted. You don't owe them proof of your pain. You owe yourself the space to rediscover your peace. Think of a fire. When it burns uncontrollably, it consumes everything. But when it's focused, steady, controlled, it warms, it transforms, it commands respect. Your silence is that fire. Not rage, not revenge, but a quiet force that reshapes the dynamic without saying a single word. Now listen closely, because this part matters. This isn't a trick. You can't fake it. If you pretend to be indifferent, but deep down you're still clinging, waiting, hoping they'll feel it. They'll smell that desperation, and your silence will come off as manipulation, not mastery. So let it be real. Practice detachment not to wound them, but to liberate yourself. Start by taking back your mornings. Don't check your phone to see if they remembered you. Go for a walk. Journal. Meditate. Rebuild your center from the ground up. Step by step, moment by moment, you stop being the person who waits and become the person who leads. Because at some point, they'll notice. The dynamic will shift. The silence that once felt like emptiness to you will begin to echo in their world, not because you punished them, but because you disappeared from their emotional radar, and people don't realize what matters until it stops knocking. So let it stop knocking. Let your silence teach the lesson your words never could. Let your absence hold the weight your presence never had when it was taken for granted. And now, if this message resonates, if you feel the weight of this truth in your bones, I ask you to do one thing, not for me, but for yourself. Say it out loud, or write it in the comments. My peace does not depend on anyone. Say it again until it stops being a sentence and starts becoming your armor. Because from this moment forward, you're not just someone who's been ignored. You're someone who's learning to master the most difficult art of all, how to live with dignity in silence. And in the next part, we'll take that mastery even further, because the most powerful shift doesn't happen when they change, it happens when you do. Part 4. Break free from guilt. You've come a long way already. You've faced the truth about respect. You've loosened the chains of emotional dependence. You've started to embrace silence, not as weakness, but as quiet power. But none of that will matter. None of if you remain trapped in the deepest and most invisible prison of all. Guilt. This is where so many parents unknowingly surrender their strength. Not to rejection, not to indifference, but to a voice that whispers from within. The voice that says, maybe I failed them. Maybe I was too harsh when they were little. What if I didn't give enough? What if I ruined it? That voice doesn't just speak, it lingers. It settles into your mind and builds a home in your heart, haunting every boundary you try to set, undermining every moment you stand up for yourself. It disguises itself as love, as conscience, even as humility. But let's be clear, guilt is not the same as love. Guilt is not clarity. Guilt is not growth. Guilt is control. And here's the hard part to face. Many of us were conditioned to believe that being a good parent means endless sacrifice, to give without limit, to endure every hurt, to swallow every insult in the name of love. That's what society says. That's what some children come to expect. And so you do it. You tolerate coldness. You explain away dismissiveness. You excuse distance. You repeat mantras like, they're just busy, or maybe I deserve this, while quietly breaking inside. But let me ask you something important. When did loving your children start, meaning you couldn't love yourself? When did setting a boundary become an act of betrayal? When did expecting mutual respect become selfish? You see, guilt doesn't just weigh you down. It opens you up to being manipulated intentionally or not. A subtle comment about what you didn't do. A weaponized memory of a mistake. A sigh. A cold glance. A carefully timed silence when you try to assert yourself. And suddenly, you're apologizing again. Backpedaling. Swallowing your truth to keep the peace. But that's not peace. That's self-erasure. Because whoever controls your guilt controls you. And here's the truth you need to let sink into your bones. Perfect parenting does not exist. It never has. Every parent, yes, even the best ones made mistakes. You made decisions with what you had, with what you knew, and with the heart you carried at the time. And if your children, now fully grown, still fixate only on your flaws, if they can't acknowledge your efforts, your sacrifices, your love, then the problem isn't your past. It's their perspective. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And isn't that exactly what guilt does? It makes you relive moments that no longer exist. It distorts your memories. It forces you to carry a weight that no longer belongs to you. So today, I ask you this. What if you stopped measuring your worth by their judgment? What if you stopped apologizing for being human? What if, instead of replaying the past, you stood in the present and said, "I did what I could. I loved. I tried. And now I'm allowed to live without shame." Because you are. Let go of the guilt that doesn't serve you. Drop it like a heavy bag you've carried for far too long. This doesn't mean you stop loving them. It means you stop punishing yourself for the parts you couldn't control. And when you do, when that weight finally lifts, something profound happens. You start walking with dignity again. You begin to look in the mirror without regret. You remember that you are still becoming, not because they forgive you, but because you forgive yourself. And once you reclaim that inner ground, the next step becomes inevitable. The next boundary, necessary. You'll learn how to say no clearly, calmly, without guilt. And that is where we go next. Part 5. Say no without guilt. Let me ask you this. How many times have you said yes while your heart whispered no? How many times have you betrayed your own peace just to keep a connection alive? This is where many parents unknowingly cross a dangerous linen knot, out of weakness, but out of fear. Fear of losing what little affection is left. Fear of rocking the boat. Fear that saying no might push their children even further away. But let me tell you something Stoic philosophy makes absolutely clear. A love without boundaries is not love at all. It's self-erasure. You see, for years, you've stretched yourself thin. You've lent money you couldn't afford to lose. Watched the grandkids when you were running on empty. Answered late-night calls that were never about you, always about what they needed. You told yourself it was what good parents do. That maybe, just maybe, if you kept saying yes, one day they'd see your sacrifices and offer the respect you deserve. But that day never came. And do you know why? Because people don't respect what they can manipulate. They respect what stands its ground. Every yes you gave when your soul cried no didn't bring them closer. It trained them to expect you to bend. And the more you bent, the more invisible you became. Until one day, your love was no longer seen as strength but as obligation. Something to use, something assumed, something guaranteed. Here's the uncomfortable truth. If you can't say no, your yes means nothing. Marcus Aurelius wrote that true strength isn't about enduring everything, it's knowing what not to tolerate, and that includes being used, overlooked, or guilt-tripped into compliance. So let's flip the script. Imagine the next time they ask for something unreasonable money you can't afford, a favor that drains you, time you don't have, you calmly say, no. No resentment, no long excuses, no guilt. Just a quiet, self-assured boundary. At first, they'll be shocked. They might react. They might even get angry. But in that silence that follows your firm refusal, something powerful will happen. They'll see you differently. Not as the parent they can push endlessly, but as someone who finally values themselves. And, more importantly, you'll feel different, stronger, lighter, whole. Because saying no is not an act of rebellion, it's an act of self-respect. It's not rejection, it's redirection. It's the beginning of living your life on your own terms, no longer held hostage by fear or guilt. You have nothing to prove anymore, not to them, not to anyone. And don't expect instant change. Like any muscle that's been neglected, the muscle of saying no will feel shaky at first. You'll second-guess yourself. You'll feel the old fear creeping back in. But every time you stand firm, even if your voice trembles, you rebuild a part of yourself that was buried beneath years of quiet suffering. Eventually, they'll adjust. Because when they realize they can't guilt you into yes, when they see you won't trade peace for scraps of attention, they'll have no choice but to meet you where you stand or drift away from a person who's finally standing tall. Remember, respect isn't begged for, it's modeled. Boundaries aren't weapons, they're the architecture of self-worth. So if you want to stop feeling invisible in their world, stop disappearing in your own. And the moment you begin to honor your own limits, the world starts paying attention. And now that you've learned to say no without guilt, we're ready to confront the next level: how to reclaim the dignity that others forgot and show up with the quiet confidence of someone who knows they were never broken, only untrained. Part 6. Build a life that doesn't depend on their presence. Let's make one thing clear. Boundaries are just the beginning. If you stop at saying no, but still center your world around them, you're not free yet. Because the most powerful shift of all, the one that reclaims your dignity completely, is this: stop acting like they're the center of your universe. The truth is, the more your life revolves around them, the more invisible you become to them. The most effective way to earn someone's attention is to show them you don't need it. That quiet hope you still carry, that they'll one day wake up, apologize, and finally treat you with the love and recognition you deserve, that's the last chain. And it's the one keeping you stuck in limbo halfway between independence and heartbreak. Let's dismantle it. Take a look at your days. From the moment you wake up, how many of your thoughts, your routines, your choices are shaped by what they do or don't do? How many meals have you eaten in silence, waiting for a message that never comes? How many invitations did you decline just in case they showed up? How many birthdays, holidays, even ordinary afternoons have passed while you were holding your breath, hoping for a call, a visit, a sign? This isn't life. This is emotional suspension. You deserve more than that. You deserve to live, not wait. If your daily joy depends on their recognition, you'll forever stay a footnote in their story. But when you start writing your own story, when you fill your days with meaning, movement, curiosity, and contribution, they'll begin to notice, not because you begged, but because your absence now has weight. People don't value what's always waiting, but they're drawn to what evolves. Imagine the parent who quietly stopped waiting, who picked up new interests, who joined a walking group, a book club, started volunteering at a local center, who traveled alone, who posted a photo laughing not for attention, but because life was good again. That image is powerful because it flips the dynamic. Now you're not asking to be included in their plans. You're too busy making your own. This isn't about revenge. This is about rising. When they see you living a life that doesn't need them, they'll begin to wonder, when did they stop being a part of this vibrant, full version of you? And that's when the respect returns. Not out of guilt, but out of awe. But let's be real, this choice isn't easy. It feels like betrayal at first, like you're giving up on the dream of the perfect family, like you're turning your back on something sacred. But ask yourself, how long are you willing to wait for something that may never come? 1 year? 5? 10? How many more mornings will you spend in silence, scrolling through memories instead of creating new ones? How many times will you whisper, maybe today, only to be met with another empty afternoon? Life is still happening, right now, and it's waiting for you to claim it. Your worth isn't defined by who remembers you. It's defined by what you choose to become, with or without their attention. And when you finally choose to live again, not for them, not through them, but for yourself, something radical shifts. You stop surviving and start thriving. You stop hoping and you start becoming. And now we arrive at the final step. The moment where everything you've built, your peace, your strength, your independence culminates in one undeniable truth. If you truly want to shake them awake, not with anger, not with words, but with something far more powerful, then stay with me. Because in the next chapter, we'll reveal the one thing that turns every ounce of rejection into something they can't ignore, the silent revenge of success. Part 7. The Silent Revenge of Success. You've already made it farther than most. You've stopped begging. You've released guilt. You've learned to say no, to protect your energy, to let go of the silent hope that one day they'll change. But none of that is enough unless you take the final step. Because if you truly want to command respect, again, not just polite obligation, but true admiration, then there's one final key. The most misunderstood and underestimated weapon in your arsenal: success in silence. This is what we call the silent revenge. Not revenge in the petty sense, not revenge rooted in resentment, but the kind of revenge Marcus Aurelius would understand life lived with so much dignity, so much direction, so much quiet radiance, that those who once ignored you now feel your absence more loudly than they ever heard your words. Here's the truth. No one dares to say out loud, "You don't need to prove anything. You need to become undeniable." When someone overlooks you, your instinct might be to remind them of what they lost, to text, to call, to explain, to plead for clarity or closure. But that's the path of the desperate. The Stoic path is different. It's not about forcing a reaction. It's about becoming so grounded, so fulfilled, so lit from within, that your silence echoes louder than any speech ever could. Let's be real. Most people don't feel your pain. They feel your absence. And they only feel your absence when they see that you've stopped orbiting their world and started building your own. That's the art. Think of someone from your past you took for granted. They were always there, always forgiving, always available. And one day, they weren't. They didn't lash out. They didn't cause a scene. They just vanished into growth. And suddenly, their absence became haunting. Not because of what they said, but because of who they'd become without you. Now, imagine becoming that person. Someone who doesn't disappear out of spite but out of evolution. Someone whose new life speaks for itself. Someone who stopped complaining and started building. Their strength doesn't scream, it radiates. Their dignity doesn't demand, it inspires. That's what you do now. You disappear not from life, but from their script. You stop showing up in roles they cast you in. The always available parent, the emotional safety net, the forgotten caretaker. And you start writing a new story, one where your joy doesn't need their permission. And if they ever come back, and they often do, it won't be because you guilted them. It'll be because they looked up one day and realized they were no longer the center of your world. And now, they want a place in yours again. But here's the question. Will you let them back in? And if so, on what terms? Because this new version of you doesn't settle, doesn't chase, doesn't wait by the phone. This version of you is too focused, too alive, too at peace to beg for anything. And to get here, you don't need to prove them wrong. You just need to prove yourself right. Right to reclaim your time. Right to protect your energy. Right to live fully, even if they never look back. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be unlike those who wronged you." And that's the code we live by. You don't react with bitterness. You respond with elevation. You risen not to impress them, but to free yourself. Because the moment they realize you've built a life that doesn't include them, that's the moment the silence hits deepest. Not because it's cold, but because it's real. They'll see you thriving. They'll feel the weight of your absence. And they'll ask themselves, when did I lose this person? How did I let them go? That's when the roles reverse. That's when the power returns. Not to punish, but to restore balance. So ask yourself, is today the day you stop waiting? Is today the day you stop building your life around people who never saw your full worth? Because if it is, then this is more than a strategy. It's a revolution. Your silent revenge is the life you build from this moment forward. And the best part? You won't need applause. You won't need permission. You'll simply live in a way that no one can ignore. And that is how you rise. Part 8. Time won't wait for you. The moment you decide to prioritize yourself, not in bitterness, not in pride, but in claritize, the moment you begin to reclaim everything you thought was lost, your peace, your worth, your sense of direction. But if there's even a small part of you still waiting, still hoping they'll change first, then there's one truth you need to face now. We've arrived at the 8th point. Time won't wait for you. It's tempting to imagine that someday they'll wake up and finally understand that life will eventually humble them, that regret will guide their steps back to you. It's a comforting story we tell ourselves that the pain will be balanced by justice, that absence will be filled by realization, that they'll one day say, "I'm sorry." But that's not how life works. There are no guarantees. No clock in the universe is counting down to the moment they'll finally see your value. In fact, the only thing we can count on is time moving forward, with or without them, with or without your healing, with or without your permission. And so, the question that changes everything is this: how will you live the time you have left? Will you spend it staring at a closed door, repeating the same memories like a broken song, hoping the past will somehow rewrite itself? Or will you turn around and finally see the world that's been waiting behind you all along? Every single day you spend dwelling on who doesn't call, who doesn't care, who doesn't show, is a day not lived, a day not seized, a day you'll never get back. How many of those have already passed? 5? 50? Too many? Marcus Aurelius said, "You could leave life right now." Let that determine what you do, say, and think. That's not fear. That's focus. Starting today, stop waiting. Not when the next holiday comes, not when your birthday arrives, not when they decide to finally remember who you are. Today, reclaim your hours, reclaim your thoughts, reclaim the joy that doesn't need permission from anyone to exist. Make a decision they never expected. Sign up for a class. Book a trip alone. Take yourself out to dinner. Call a friend who brings you peace. Do one thing that reminds you, this life is still yours. And remember, this isn't some dramatic gesture to provoke a reaction. This isn't about making them jealous or drawing attention. This is about a quiet vow between you and yourself. A daily commitment to live fully, without resentment, without waiting rooms, without chains. This shift will take strength. The kind of strength most people never build because they're too busy checking their phones for people who've long stopped showing up. But not you. Not anymore. Every time you choose to act instead of waiting, you take back what's been leaking away: your time, your energy, your self-respect. And here's the beautiful irony. When you finally stop needing them, that's when you become unforgettable. And yes, maybe time will teach them what they failed to see. Maybe one day they'll remember the sound of your voice, the way you used to be there for them, the calm they once took for granted. But by then, you won't be the same person. You'll be someone who didn't just survive their absence. You'll be someone who thrived in it. So ask yourself now, with brutal honesty, are you going to keep giving away your precious time to a door that stays shut? Or will you start opening your own? Because the clock is ticking, and it's not waiting for them. It's waiting for you. Part 9. Break the chains of excuses. We've arrived at the 9th point in this journey, and this is the moment where most people quietly retreat, not because they don't want to change, but because the moment they decide to something unexpected surfaces. Not motivation, resistance. And that resistance doesn't come from your children or your past or even your circumstances. It comes from within, from the years of stories you've told yourself, the subtle justifications you've whispered so many times that now you believe them. You've built a fortress of excuses so convincing, you mistake them for facts. But let's call them what they really are. A-chains. Invisible, but heavy. Comfortable, but suffocating. And if you don't confront them now, they'll steal the rest of your life while you sit still, hoping for a future that never arrives. Let's dismantle the biggest lie first. It's too late. Too late for what? To grow? To begin again? To become someone you can still be proud of? This lie has burrowed so deeply into the minds of people over 60, over 70, over 80, that they live as if the only thing left is waiting. Waiting for health to fade, waiting for others to change, waiting for time to run out. But here's the Stoic truth. You're not dead. And until that moment comes, your time is not over. Marcus Aurelius didn't write meditations in his youth. He wrote them while bearing the weight of an empire. Seneca's greatest works came in exile. Your most meaningful years don't need to be behind you. They can still be ahead, but only if you stop saying too late and start saying, why not now? And then comes the second trap, the fear of being alone. You've built a life around them, your children, your spouse, your role in the family. And now the idea of stepping out from that role feels terrifying. Not because you're afraid of solitude, but because deep down, you're afraid of finding out who you are without them. That kind of independence is frightening, isn't it? But let me offer you a different view. Loneliness is not exile. It's your return to self. In the stillness, you reconnect with your thoughts, with your values, with your freedom. That silence isn't a punishment. It's your opportunity. It's where your next chapter begins, not surrounded by applause, but grounded in peace. And then comes the third excuse, the one that feels the most justifiable. My health won't let me. Yes, your body may move differently now. Your joints may ache. Your energy may wane. Your pace may be slower. But your spirit is not your spine. Your will is not your knees. And your mind still holds untapped strength. You don't need to climb mountains. You don't need to run marathons. But you do need to get up and move, even if that means inching forward with the grace and courage of someone who refuses to be defined by limitation. Because let's be honest, sometimes it's not the pain that holds us back. It's the story we attach to the pain. Don't make your condition your cage. Epictetus was born a slave and walked with a limp for most of his life. But his wisdom reshaped the ancient world. Your body may not be the same, but your resolve can be stronger than it's ever been. So here it is. The truth you've avoided, the excuses that sound so reasonable, they are the real enemy. Not your kids, not your age, not your illness. It's the belief that you need perfect conditions before you begin, that you can't start over without being certain. That suffering is safer than change. But if you let that continue, you're not just wasting time, you're abandoning your own life. So ask yourself, how many more years will you give to the excuses? How much more will you surrender to fear disguised as logic? Because this is your moment to break free. Not with grand gestures, not with rage or rebellion, but with one quiet decision. I won't follow these lies anymore. No more too late. No more I can't. No more waiting for perfect. You still have time. You still have choice. And you still have power. The final point? It's not about philosophy. It's about whether you'll finally use that power or keep giving it away. Part 10. The final challenge. No more waiting. If you don't act now, let me be brutally honest with you. You will spend the rest of your life waiting for their call, for their change of heart, for closure that will never come. And one day, you'll sit quietly with a heart heavy with regret, asking yourself, why didn't I move when I still had the chance? So here we are, at the end of this video, but more importantly, standing at the edge of a decision. And before we part ways, there's something you must understand deeply. This message wasn't meant to comfort you. It was meant to confront you. You didn't come here for soft words or empty encouragement. You came here because something inside you is tired. Tired of being invisible. Tired of waiting. Tired of hoping that love alone would be enough to change the outcome. And now, you have a choice to make. Not tomorrow. Right now. Some of you will close this video and go back to your usual routine, your usual thoughts, the usual excuses, the usual pain dressed in silence. But others, the few, the rare few who stayed with me until this very last moment, you are different. You are ready. You had the courage to face what most people run from. The truth about what you've become. The truth about what you've lost. And the truth about what's still possible if you decide to take your life back. But don't lie to yourself. This journey isn't easy. No voiceover can carry you through it. No quote from Marcus Aurelius will transform you unless you act. Real change requires discipline. It demands emotional steel. It asks you to stop looking for reassurance and start building resilience. The kind that doesn't come from comfort, but from confrontation. The kind that grows only when you're willing to be brutally honest with yourself. So if you've made it here, I honor you. Because most people never will. They'll stay numb. They'll keep romanticizing the past. They'll keep blaming others while quietly abandoning themselves. But not you. because you're still listening. And that means a part of you is ready. Maybe not fully, maybe you're scared, but you're here, and that's enough to begin. Now I want to ask something of you, something simple but powerful. Write a single sentence in the comments. Not for me, for you. A phrase that captures what hit you the hardest today, a truth you can't unhear, something that cuts through the noise and speaks directly to your core. And tell us where you're watching from. Not because it matters to the algorithm, but because this message, this movement, is global. All of us, broken, rebuilding, real. I'm Gabriel, and Live Stoic Now exists because we've waited long enough. Too long. We've waited for others to change, for time to heal, for validation to arrive. But no more. This space, this community, is here to destroy that passivity. To help you walk the Stoic path, not with bitterness, but with clarity. Not with hate, but with inner strength. Because life, as Epictetus reminded us, is not about what happens to you. It's about what you do with it. You've been handed adversity. Now turn it into action. You've been handed silence. Now let it echo with your strength. This is not a channel. This is not a trend. This is a new standard for how we face the chaos of life, with eyes open, spine straight, and dignity fully intact. If this message struck something deep inside you, subscribe. Join this tribe of people who are done waiting and ready to build. Share this video with someone who needs it. And before you go, I've left 2 more videos on screen that will take everything we've built here and drive it even deeper into your soul. Because this was never the end. It was your beginning. The conversation doesn't end here, and it never should. Because this path of reclaiming yourself, of standing in dignity, of walking forward alone if you must isn't just a video or a lesson. It's a way of living. So, keep going. Keep asking the hard questions. Keep cutting away the illusions that held you down for too long. Because life doesn't wait from this moment forward. Neither should you. You don't need closure. You need clarity. You don't need their apology. You need your own permission to live. Let this be your beginning.